does Tennessee have to beat Georgia at their own game? We thought beforehand that Tennessee would be able to win with a great offense, a great culture, but when it comes down to it, you win in high school football recruiting. So does Tennessee need to change its approach? Because I look at Tennessee's transfers in the transfer portal, mixed success. When I look at Georgia, I see a team that's built off high school football recruiting. In other words, we all got excited about NIL, but at the end of the day, Caleb, can Tennessee beat Georgia and the elite programs with NIL and transfer portal and C+ high school recruiting?
And for those who don't know, Dave has a column on this right now on Off the Hook that's a really good one that you guys should read. And I know where Dave's going with this, but I'm going to disagree with you, Dave. I don't think they have to beat Georgia at their own game. And I just have yesterday's college football playoff game to prove it. Notre Dame went the transfer route. They went all in on the transfer route, 100%. And what did they do? They beat Georgia. Now, look, I'm going to be the first to tell you guys, I think if Carson Beck is playing that game, Georgia wins.
Okay, thank you. I was hoping for that.
Sorry?
I was hoping for that. I mean, if they have Carson Beck, they win that game.
They do, yes. But at the same time, Notre Dame cashed in on Georgia not being 100%. And this is where I think Tennessee is at. I don't think in the Kirby Smart era, Tennessee will ever, and I mean, I'm sorry, ever be on Georgia's level, pure talent-wise. I don't think it's going to happen. I think what you can do is you can find other ways to get an advantage. What are those ways? You need to find if you're going to be on Georgia's level, if you're not going to be on Georgia's level talent-wise, how do you surpass them? You got to have an advantage at quarterback, because I think, Dave, you would agree one team can be more talented, but the team with the better quarterback can very much neutralize that advantage.
It's the Mike Vick rule. It can change a program.
There you go. Exactly. So there's that. You need a creative offensive scheme that can be a little bit ahead of the curve. And yeah, maybe you need to rely on a little bit of luck every now and then. Something like what happened in this situation where Georgia's starting quarterback was hurt. They were banged up on the offensive line, and it really showed in the playoff game yesterday. In the NIL era, those things are going to happen because, as you know, Dave, one thing that was clear yesterday, Georgia getting hurt on the offensive line, they weren't. If this were 2 years ago, they're still winning that game. But because they were banged up on the offensive line, they couldn't replenish guys up front, and they paid for it. And so I think that's good. That is the focus of Tennessee right now has to be having an advantage at quarterback, but it's also got to be staying ahead of the curve on offense, man. And I think for the past 2 years, they've struggled with that. They've got to figure out how to get back ahead of the curve where teams don't know what they're doing. I would think Josh Heupel's smart enough to go back to the drawing board this all season and add new elements to his game.
Okay, but here's the scary thing. Okay, let's take the wing T, for instance, or let's take the triple option or whatever. It is what it is. So is Josh Heupel's offense. It is what it is. He's tried stuff since 2022 with tunnel screens and doing some different things, and Princeton Fant running the ball and all this other things. But ultimately, the offense is what it is. And I think that's what's scary for Tennessee fans, is not only Josh Heupel's offense, but it appears as if that offense has been somewhat figured out. You actually referenced this a couple of days ago.
Yeah, no, and I still wonder if it has, but I think I can't, as a commentator, guess how you can get around it being figured out. That Josh Heupel's paid too much money to not figure out an answer to that. And so I think it's on Josh Heupel. For instance, we brought up Tom Osborne and Tommy in Nebraska for a while. Dave, when Tom Osborne took over at Nebraska, by and large, the triple option had been figured out. There's a reason Tom Osborne went 23 years without winning a national title. What did he do that changed it all? He went for Tommy Frazier. Tom Osborne decided that it was not common practice to have a elite track star, a guy with track speed playing quarterback for you. You kind of almost, during the early triple option days, Dave, I'm sure you know this, you kind of had just a fullback with a big arm playing quarterback, right?
Yes.
And Tom Osborne said, let me go for speed more than the fullback power guy. And that changed the entire triple option complexion in the 90s and, really turn Nebraska into a dynasty. And so I think that's got to be the focus of Tennessee, is finding a way where they can get a new advantage with this offensive scheme that no one has caught on to yet. Maybe it's more use of the tight ends, honestly. Maybe it's getting a mismatch of tight ends.
I wanted to get to that because there's a problem with that. And I'm going to tell you the problem with using that 12 personnel, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. Here's the problem, Caleb. If they decide, hey, we're a 12 personnel team, we're going to run 2 tight ends all the time. You know what that does? That lowers your equity, your fan equity, because it's exciting to see Hendon Hooker throw for 300 million yards. Whereas if you go 12 personnel and you're winning games 23-16, it feels a little bit different. The record might be the same. Tennessee could win 9 games next season, absolutely throwing it all over the park, and people would be like, that was a pretty good year. But if they win with 12 personnel on an average margin of victory by 4.5 points, people would be like, this program's in the toilet.
So
is that not true? I mean, it matters.
Yes, it is semi-true. It doesn't matter if you're winning championships. It's irrelevant if you're actually winning championships. Now, if you're in the 8 to 9 to win range, then yeah, you want to put on a show. But if you're winning titles, I don't think anybody cares how it's done.
Okay, but here, like 12 personnel, winning 9 games or 10 games, and then, or what they did this year, 10 games, and then jumping to that championship level, it's kind of like the chicken or the egg. Do you do the 12 personnel if that's what you believe is right so that you can win, or do you have to win to tell your fans the 12 personnel? Because I don't know that they have the talent to just completely change scheme. I think they have to play somewhat to the talent they have, and that's more receivers, that's more inside running. I mean, the direction of this offense is set. So you say change direction a little bit. You say maybe change coaches. I guess I'm a little bit more hesitant than you.
Dave, what I would say is you may have a point if we're talking, what do you do if you're at Maryland, or what do you do if you're even at Florida for that matter? But at Tennessee, if you win, the fans will come. We're talking Tennessee's fan base here. They don't care if they win 3-0. Okay. This is the program built on General Nealon, who notoriously, I don't know if you know the stories of Nealon, Dave, but there were times where when he got in the red zone, if he had a good kicker, he would just go ahead and kick it on first down because he's like, they're not going to score the rest of the game, and I know I'm going to stop them. So he'd kick a field goal on first down and just milk the clock the rest of the game and win 3-0 and call it a day. So, I mean, I just look. That is, I'm sorry, I don't think it's a big deal that I don't think Tennessee, I guess where I'm going with this is if they go 12 personnel, it won't be a big deal. Put it that way. It's not going to be a big deal if they go 12 personnel.
I don't know. I heard a bunch of people griping about it this year, and not this year, but I heard people griping about the tunnel screens in 2023. I don't know. I think people want that 2022 offense back. And I'm just going to tell you, Hendon Hooker was a special deep ball passer. You had an incredible group of receivers that included the Blitnikoff winner. Caleb, Tennessee fans need to deal with the very, very realistic possibility that Tennessee's offense will never be as explosive as it was in 2022.
Yes, they will. But at the same time, now here's the question. In the NIL age, does that hurt? Because I will tell you this. While Tennessee fans may show up for the games, let's be honest, Hendon Hooker to Jalen Hyatt for 3 touchdowns or whatever in a game, that sells tickets. And that also sells endorsements. People want highlights.
That's what I'm telling you. It's the chicken or the egg. So if you don't do that and you're winning by 4 points, do you go to boosters and say, I need you to spend this money on NIL, but we're not as exciting, but we still need you to spend the money? I don't know how that sell goes, Caleb.
No, I don't either. But I you could kind of brand it as, we play tough SEC blue collar football. And you know how like some fans kind of love that. Some fans in the South do love that.
You're talking to one of them. I mean, I would rather that I'd be fine if they said we're going to roll out the triple option next year. I mean, I like that. I like that. You and I have talked about how I like the inside running game.
Well, and I can tell you this, like, I'll just give you a quick example. You guys know I live in the DMV area, DC, Maryland, Virginia, and I live amongst a lot of Ravens fans. And I'll just tell you right now, because of the Ray Lewis era, they take way more pride in winning games 10-7 and 13-10 than they ever do winning like 35-20, something like that. And
now this is a little before your time. Okay. 1998, that entire season, a lot of Tennessee fans, maybe the majority, were like, man, they're just going to screw this one up. The offense isn't good enough. I mean, going into the Arkansas game, I bet if you polled Tennessee fans, 60% said they were going to lose that Arkansas game. It was so odd. It was like you're waiting the whole year for them to stumble. Why?
And that was their first game in 40 years as the number 1 team in the nation.
I know. Why? Because their defense was great and they were running football team. People don't have faith in that. So my question is, do those NIL people continue to write checks?
It's
not as sexy. I'll give you an example. I got a Christmas present. When my mom wrapped it, it was in this beautiful gifts, and it was had a bow and everything. And my dad didn't believe in spending money on wrapping paper, so he wrapped it in the newspaper, which looked more exciting.
I get it, but it's like, I totally understand. It's the same with basketball. With like, okay, in the 90s you had Kevin O'Neal, and in the 2000s you had Bruce Pearl. Now Bruce Pearl won, so it didn't matter. But like, which one? I'll give you an example. Remember how much Tennessee fans did not like Conzo Martin when he was at Tennessee? And I didn't think he was a bad coach, but I think part of it was Conzo was a defensive-oriented, half-court motion offense guy, and you're following Bruce Pearl, who is like nothing but tempo, nonstop all day, the most fun coach to watch.
Okay, but I'm just telling you, Kevin O'Neal is a great example. If he continues to win 50-46, they are not going to be fans of Kevin O'Neal.